Welcome everybody to Spinner Rack, and I'm here with PD. Cal couldn't make it today, but he's with us in spirit, love, and hope. Keep hope alive, baby. Look, Terrificon, I gotta say, was one of the better cons that I've been around. It's a local con in Connecticut.
Not local for us.
Not local for us because we're in the tri-state area.
It's on the East Coast.
Yeah, but it's like it was well organized. People were in there. People enjoyed themselves. It was held at the Mohegan Sun Casino, which there was enough space. I wish they had more space for food and stuff like that.
But the thing is that they have. You're saying about was it Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, that's
otherwise they have
the
so
line
much.
on Chick-fil-A was
it's a
bananas.
casino, so there's so much things to do outside of the con.
Other than that, we met Christopher Priest, Zek.
This wasn't a small con, but as far as when they went to Artist Alley,
local con.
It wasn't necessarily that small.
No, it wasn't. I'd say this is Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, San Diego are humongous, right? Boston probably is a bit a shade, a little lower, probably, and this is even smaller than that. But I mean, the size and the organization and the stuff that they had. The other big ones have nothing on them. You know what I'm trying to say? Naturally, the scale is smaller, but the very fact that you have the artists. I mean, we're talking about some top artists from Secret Wars, from Starling, from Infinity Wars. I mean,
Alan Davis,
Christopher Priest.
Well, we were, I guess the plan was mainly to interact with the cosplayer, but they had a lot of comic creators, but we haven't always been able to have the time in a big con with a lot of people, and there was a lot of people walking around. So by the time we made it to Artist Alley, we got to interact with Christopher Priest, who was, the subject of our,
award-winning documentary,
our small award-winning documentary
on Brick.
So he, at the point, he said, "Oh, I don't remember you guys," and we said, "No, you've talked to." Well, he didn't know him as Cal. But he said he didn't know him as the comic book hero.
Right.
But they've talked back and forth. But we've only met him at the New York Con 2 years ago,
which was massive,
and it was very quick. So we talked with him, but he had people signing, and it was a great point where we didn't get to talk to him again. But when we were saying like, "No, you guys just stay, wait, don't go." But every time we came back to him, we always had people, which was good, and it was tough because he obviously spent all day Friday. And said Sunday was going to be slower, but it was good to talk to him post making the video, making that small doc. And then as we went along,
I mean, there's one thing though that we do, and we try not to be respectful of creators and artists and retailers. We don't like to interrupt them when they're trying. This is their trade. Their trade, whether they're selling something or they're dealing with customers. I think that's very important, and we feel that they have to take the time to do that. Anytime that they give to us to talk about to talk about what we do is fantastic, and this is just one of the things too. Okay. Oh, shout out to Mitch. Mitch is the producer, the organizer of Terrificon, and he took the time out, and we did a quick interview with him on our Instagram page, I believe.
Oh, you did on Instagram?
Yeah, okay. Instagram. So if you want to see him as he discussed what he thinks is important for the about coming there, he tells you. I mean, like I said, it's a very well run con.
Well, the thing is that at times with creators, they're also there to work. So a lot of times we've asked them for interviews, and either they're in the hustle and bustle, or they're there sketching, or they're not really in the mind frame to do Sci-Fi just done some very great interviews with comic creators, and they take them to the location, interview them, they probably feed them. So it's really tough to just come to them and say, "Hey, give me an interview." But at the same time, and I've gone to Mike Zeck, and I've gone to Renee Witterstatter, and I bought this from Mike Zeck.
And who's Renee Witterstatter?
She is the art agent for Michael Golden, Arthur Saddam, and Mike Zeck, who is over here. And now this time I got this piece from him. I got another piece, which is a cover, like a mock of a print of one of the G.I. Joe covers. But I'm a big fan, and it's funny. People arguing online. They say, "What about the white gloves? The white gloves don't scare people." No, this is the gun that scares people. It's the reaction how when he punishes you, that's what scares you. So, and at the same time, big business here. Our own Mars talked to Mike Zeck, and he asked him would he do an interview, and Mike Zeck kindly said no, but then he talked to Mars for a very long time.
And I appreciate
and
him
me
taking the
as
time.
a comic fan, a fan of Mike Zeck, I appreciated it, but then at the same time there was some jealousy, and it hurt my heart. And I saw that he got the no, but they kept talking. And it's that moment when you're saying, what's going on? This guy, he did, look at all the great work that he did. Mars, who some points had grown out of, like most men do, grown out of comic books and got a life and a family. And Mike Zeck is talking to Mars for a very long time. It wouldn't end.
I guess we connected
I've
somehow,
been at the table. I've talked to Renee. I'm thinking about having her sign that Shield cover. She was on one of the covers. And then they also made a deal under my thing. And it's always great. But I just wanted to say, as a fan, the kid in me is like, how did this happen? I was going to sit by. We were going to talk. We'd be friends. He was going to draw me some comic books, probably X-Men. But that all happened for Mars. No, just kidding. But it's great to see. Can you give us any insight on what he gave you in that talk?
I mean, one thing he just said is that, it's a business. He enjoys a business, and he enjoys coming out to these type of things, talking to the fans, and he understands the need to do that. I mean, he didn't want to give an interview, but he answered any question you want. How did you feel about drawing this? I had I got a piece of the very famous first issue of the Spider-Man with the black outfit.
Yes,
and
one he created. Yes.
Yeah, the one that he talked about, and he was willing to talk. I think he could have lasted a lot longer if people weren't throwing daggers at me when I was talking to him. But
I didn't. I was trying not to throw daggers, but then there's a little hint. But we've seen Michael Golden, and there's one of his from the past. There's one of his pieces that I bought, and it's his art agent Renee Whittaker. They're very good salespeople, and I love their art. I love Mike Zeck.
Yeah,
there's
quality
also
stuff.
Arthur Saddam, he's here. But also when you go, there's not just these prints. I mean, there's actually this portfolio that Michael Golden did that I got. It was from Image. That was all of his Jurassic Park covers, and all of them are just as detailed as that. So it's not artist edition, it's not original art, but how are you gonna you can go to any artist and say, look at these pieces. So there's stuff there. There's stuff to get from these guys. They're really great. Not just the covers and not worrying about the prints. And if you're into the actual sale value, there's a certificate of authenticity. There's a bunch of stuff that they have. They always give you these protective sleeves that you can buy. So it's it's one of the best tables because they're very engaging.
Yes.
They're very persuasive also.
Oh, doggone it. We ended up buying a lot of stuff.
But I'm glad that I joke about this because I was like wanted to use it against them, saying that they made a deal, but it's fine because we're working. We're a team. Besides him not saying, hey, Prime Minister, come here and talk with me.
I didn't see what Prime was. He stepped away. All I know is I just started throwing daggers. Who else did we see? We saw Roy Thomas.
Well, let's go. We're going to get to Roy Thomas, but before that, we went to a panel for Superman. It was a surprise. We were just there.
Right.
And it had Paul Kupperberg. It had Roger Stern, Jerry Ordway. It had Peter Tomasi, and one of the people that were running the con. And they talked about Superman for a little while, and they talked about what they liked. And it was interesting because there was points that I hadn't really thought about because I really wasn't with the marriage. And he talked a little about, marrying off Clark Kent and saying the difference, because I would look at the difference between Spider-Man and getting married and Superman getting married. And I was like, there's no difference. And then they explained it as like, they thought about it because they were saying initially that Lois was going to turn Clark Kent down. But then they said, what if? Jerry Ordway would say, what if they do get married? And then they said, what would that be? He said, well, we want a long engagement.
Right.
Which is what they did. And actually, Superman died. And then after that, when he came back, they got married. So it's interesting that they said that. And I wasn't really looking at that. I would just say, it's the same thing, same thing. And it's important that like Spider-Man is one issue that he asked to marry, and then maybe a couple weeks later, they got him. Because also Stan Lee was marrying Peter Parker off in the news strip. So Marvel was trying to coincide it and collect on, Stan's marrying him off, we're marrying him off, that sort of thing. So that was interesting. What else did they? One of the interesting to me was Jerry Ordway talked about Superman issue 2, where Lex Luthor figures out Superman is also Clark Kent, but he doesn't believe it. And he talked about this is one of his favorite stories because it goes in the fact that Superman doesn't have a mask on. So even the idea of Clark Kent is just like, this is like strange to me because he doesn't wear a mask. I don't care what this thing says.
Right.
Like he doesn't, he not, why he's going to disguise himself as this person, and also that he's that insane to say, I wouldn't do that. So he's added, so it was interesting to see because everyone brings that up, and Jerry Ordway, and it was good to listen to the comic creators that were fans of Superman for so many years. So
and they said they believed. I mean, when you put on the glasses, he acts like Clark Kent. I mean, he's not acting like Superman. Superman is, you know, the God amongst us, basically. But when he's Clark Kent, he's just a regular human being. He's, you know. So I thought that was pretty interesting in that whole discussion and how they looked at Superman and they found that they could go in and mine stories. Remember they were talking about trying to get other characters into their books, and DC would say, no, you can't do that.
Oh, yeah,
because
they talked about
the company goes first. And
so, what is this? What is this? Can't do anything.
So
no, he talked
so
about
they would change the name of characters.
Not being able to use the Guardian, and then they said no to that because he was in another book, not because they're saying he's already a story with them. So then they created Gangbuster, which led to the whole. Gangbuster was also in the Marv Wolfman Superman, and then Byrne and Ordway developed the character where the character gets hurt. He's a Hispanic character who's a hero who gets hurt, and then becomes a big mystery who taken the place of, who's picked up the mantle of what's the name of the Gangbuster. So that's a big mystery in the Stern, Ordway, Dan Jurgens, the whole Mike Carlin run. So we were talking a little about that, which is interesting. So
who did they say was a character that they thought people hated? What was the name of that character? And they one of them liked a lot.
I can't.
There was one particular character. Sorry, guys. But I mean, another thing too that you lean that every time they get on the book, they have to give their own spin on it, right?
Yes.
You know, but they do know the history. You know, they do go back and read what other people, but they don't want that always to affect, you know, how they want to interpret it. But they also understand that there are parameters that Superman has to be within, and they all have a genuine love of the character. You know.
And also talk about because who was it? Paul Kupperberg did the pre-crisis Superboy, and he did the New Adventures of Superboy, and he talked about having Clark Kent shed a little bit of the not necessarily the nerd aspect, to say that he couldn't be involved in anything else. He would reveal his identity, whereas Clark Kent goes to play baseball, and he hits the ball, and he gets a base hit. And there's no reason why they would think he's Superman. Oh, see, look, Clark went to first base. Like, no, a kid can play baseball on the base. Like, hey, Clark, great. And it's like shed a little bit. That's the aspect of something that you know, that John Byrne was doing, which was sort of kind of just lessening, not having him be mild mannered, but not having him, you know, not having him be, oh, I got to fall over just to make sure. And I think they brought up the Superman movie where he has the moment where he like goes from being 6 foot, and then when he becomes Superman, he's 6'3". And I think if you go to the movie, and this is not too different from them. There's another point in the movie. If you're in this big city, like Clark Kent's walking around and he's like 6'3" in a hat, but no one paying attention to him, and he's not being outwardly aggressive. So like when he's walking and he misses the elevator, no one is saying, "Oh, there's Clark." They're just like, "Who's this nobody?" And they're hitting so when you're in the city and it's a whole 3 million people, he's not standing out.
Right.
He's within there, and that's the thing. Stuff is happening, but the hustle and bustle of the city makes you believe, oh, maybe Lois, maybe Jimmy, because they're always around him. But if he didn't have this sector of friends, they would never know. And that's what we're playing with the identity. So it was interesting to hear them talk about it because they're the experts, and I really didn't know. It seems like Jerry Ordway seemed like the nicest man on the planet. It's like he was just like so it's like is he gonna say something? No, everything is very like but it was a good panel to watch.
Yeah, it was.
And what I cut you off to say, there was also a Roy Thomas panel. And this was also a tribute to Roy.
And who was Roy?
Roy Thomas is writer of many Marvel and DC comics. He was the editor-in-chief of Marvel for a while. He basically, well, he ushered in Star Wars for Marvel, and before that he ushered in Conan, and had a long run with Marvel. Conan left Marvel, came back and did some more Conan, like Conan magazines, did the first maybe, not sure how long he was on, at least the first year of Star Wars as writer. So and then, he did X-Men with Neil Adams, the classic run, created Wolverine, like it gave Lean Wen the idea to say, hey, I want you to make, because he liked how Lean Wen did accents, so I want you to make a Canadian character, and it said Wolverine and, ferocious, and then also who along with them was John Romita and Lean Wen, and Herb Trimp, because they added a lot to it. So you had those creators, so they talked about that. But it was basically celebrating him, and they gave him some gifts. We had some stills of that, and then he also performed, because he's also was in a band, a singer, which he performed with the Blues Brothers band. So
right.
And they also had Joe Sinnott there. Joe Sinnott was there. He showed up at the con.
Came all the way from upstate New York to see him, which is cool.
Came through.
And Roy Thomas was the editor-in-chief at one time of Marvel.
He was. He took over right after Stan.
Though Stan kept a strong hand,
well,
according to Roy, because he would always say, "Well, with Stan, basically, I would only do things that I think Stan would want me to do," and Stan didn't want it to happen. It wasn't going to happen. I think Stan was going to the West Coast at that time, right?
He was going to the West Coast. He was overseeing any sort of TV projects, anything, and he was.
And this was when, in the 70s?
This is in the 70s.
Right.
He sort of gave up Spider-Man. I think he gave up the Fantastic Four first, then he gave up Spider-Man. He would check in, like one of the things, the joke of the time was that Stan Lee came back, looked at Iron Man and said, shouldn't he have a nose? Immediately they gave Iron Man a nose. And then Stan looked at it a while later, it's like, why does Iron Man have a nose? Like, Stan, you said, oh no, I wasn't expecting you guys to do that. So, he, but not only did he create, give the initial idea for Wolverine, he also said to Lean Wen, who was also co-creator on Wolverine, hey, I want to do the X-Men again. I want to do a group of mutant Black Hawks, which are actually multiracial like paedophiles. So they want to do that for the X-Men, and that's how we got a multiracial X-Men. And that, I think he was a little going after, X-Men didn't hit at that point either. Archie Goodwin, he's the one who sort of pushed them. He didn't change them, but just got them monthly, adding John Byrne to it, and it went monthly, and slowly over time it started to pick up. So, he has a long history of many strong things that worked. He was, Avengers wasn't a big selling title, and Stan took out all of the main characters that's outside of Captain America, and then once Captain America hit, he took Captain America out the title, so he had all of these other characters, which would be Scarlet Witch and Vision, like Giant Man or Goliath, Wasp, Vision, and like all these other characters that aren't the big three, but made it a strong title. And John Buscema came on the title, then Sal Buscema, and then slowly, but until it got into success, then the Kree Skull War, Neil Adams come on, then Avengers is almost shifting, becoming the main cosmic title, which was carried on past Roy with Steve Englehart. But
and prior to that, Defenders was the main title, the main
not
Marvel
really,
title. Right?
No, they, at the time Defenders came out, Englehart was doing both, so they had a crossover. So Englehart was the hot hand. He did all the leftover big characters like Submariner, Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Silver Surfer was in there from time.
Who are the Defenders? That is the Defenders.
But I'm saying they were just what was left over, and they weren't necessarily characters that would be in a group. So the Defenders were a non-group. It's like whoever is involved. So sometimes you have Nighthawk, but when Englehart was doing both, and he had them, had the Defenders fight the Avengers, which is a powerful, fun story for anyone to read. But Roy Thomas at the point was editor-in-chief. He the first that came up with that name for the title, and Marvel still worked sort of. It isn't until they really got on schedule until I think Jim Shooter got involved. But he's the first one that had that title. He ran it for a good decent while, and then I think contemporaries like Jerry Conway took it over after him, but that's his close friend. They've done a number of stuff at DC together.
And so I think it's when he started transitioning from when it was a smaller organization, which was taken over. I think it was taken over by another company, and Stan Lee was run through him basically. It was his vision. But then once he left, Roy Thomas is that transitional figure from when Stan Lee till Shooter, where we start getting the real huge growth in Marvel, right?
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can't really. The growth part is always in the company cadence of them wanting to do more. And Stan had already broken the clause that DC had that Marvel can only do a certain number of books. So Stan was a part in trying to take the next step.
Why could they only do a certain number of books?
Because they were sort of under DC. So that's why they were under DC for a long time up until I think they were bought. And at that point, Marvel can put as much books as they want. And they flooded the market, which they always do. But at the same time, there was a price increase. So DC, this is like 70s is, since this is going into too much, but the 60s have a boom. So the 70s in comics needed to be a crash. So everyone's expecting that, but they hadn't hit it yet. So there's a rise in production costs. So prices are going up. So it's like 15 cents. And it's going up to 25. That's what's the price point. So DC went at the price point. You'd expect Marvel to do the same, but Marvel said, let's go to 20. And DC said, hey, we're going up, but we'll reprint old books. Didn't help out. They had a big implosion, and Marvel took the #1 spot. And that was one of Stan and I guess Cadence's plan. But then from that point, Roy Thomas held Marvel for that time, and then as a freelancer, he brought in Star Wars and Conan. So he's a strong creator. He went to Topps. He's done, before Mike Mignola did Hellboy, got famous, he was doing stories for Topps, which he did the Dracula with Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy. And that Dracula, they did that story, but they didn't have an opening for Dracula. So they brought in the artist Mike Mignola with Francis Ford Coppola and Roman Coppola, and they talked about it, and they were struggling, and they needed an open, so they had Mike Mignola draw the open scene just to lay it out, and they used that in the film. So it's not a small. They're going to re-release that trade paperback with IDW, and it has been in print for a long time, but that was really where you see Mike Mignola find himself, and that's with Roy Thomas. So he's got a stellar career. He's still a writer in comics. He also did a ton of stuff for DC. He did he was very keeper of the flame of the Earth 2 stuff. He did All-Star Squadron. When I started reading comic books, one of the books I used to like was All-Star Squadron. It had a lot of the old characters, and had Rick Buckler, Jerry Ordway, who we just talked about, and covers by Joe Kubert. It's one of my favorite titles until I forgot about DC and bought only Marvel stuff. And I'm like, wait, I haven't bought All-Star Squadron or Legion of Superheroes in a long time. So,
well, they probably stopped making them.
No, they didn't stop making them at that point. They were
Oh.
still selling. The Crisis did in that. But I mean, Roy Thomas is as well. Who was it? The editor-in-chief at Marvel.
The new editor-in-chief.
CB Cebulski, and he gave him a credit, and then he talked about him possibly doing something for Conan.
Yeah.
Since Marvel got Conan back.
Conan.
So that would be fun to see.
I think I'm going to reissue some of the older Conan,
yeah.
but I think the possibility of there being new Conan is there. I mean, that would be great,
Yeah, I guess Conan has also one of the weird phenomenons that it was a success as a licensed property. It was a success, and it switched artists when the artist Barry Windsor Smith got into his own. He left after issue, I think, 25, and then who is it? John Buscema comes on, and the book was even bigger. So, what do you do? He's been a talent for many years, and he's still around, and he still knows all the old stories.
Oh yeah.
So,
and that's one of the great things. I mean, you see the old creators and writers and artists, and you also see the new ones. Phil Richardson, who was doing World of Wakanda, couldn't get to talk to her because she had people.
Oh, yeah.
And the same thing with Priest and I think Nick Davies, who was also there.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's
Don McGregor.
I mean, you have
Bob
Bob
Allman.
Yeah, he's always in the stuffs too. So I mean, we try and contact and speak to everyone if we can, but reality again. There's just so many people and who want to get stuff from these guys, and we don't want to interrupt their business. If we can, we can. And the panels are fantastic if you get them. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And I gotta say, Jason Momoa had all those people in a tizzy. Those girls were definitely in a tizzy for him.
Well, the problem is that
Boston
you're thinking Boston, but he was there too. So the problem is that Jason Momoa is as tall as anyone thinks they are. He's even taller than that. So I can't imagine. I know Lisa Bonet is about yay big, and he's about this big. No, actually, I want to tell you the truth. Jason Momoa isn't that tall. He's about where we're sitting. He's this high. So girls don't like him.
So, Alan, you have anything else to say about the con?
Alan Davis was there with art. He had some of his art pages. He was signing, taking pictures. So the creators are out there having fun with the fans. And also there was a huge Iron Man suit that was out there. There was a great alien with Ripley. So it was a lot of good. You can check
that on our Instagram page. You also had Michael Jai White.
Michael Jai White was there. Yes,
and he's standing like him in the suit. Is it I think it's Overwatch, isn't it? Overwatch military suit.
Yes,
and he's standing there like they're gonna battle out. It was really cool.
I would worry about whoever's trying to battle Michael Jai White, because there's a video with him and Kimbo Slice where he shows you how you're really supposed to punch. You're not supposed to like do if you can do like you can't be stopped. So he's
gonna be he's supposed to be, I think, at Urban.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure. But he usually shows up a lot, so we see him locally.
So, I mean, just want to say, just keep supporting your con. Look at the stuff we got. I got this from the Schomburg, got this one from BoroCon. Like, keep supporting your local cons. I think in the New York con, that's when I think I already showed you this guy. I got too much stuff here. I keep buying, but I'm always a fan of Paris Cullins.
Always a fan of Paris Cullins.
I've already got original art from him also. So, come out to your cons, meet your pros. They got, talk, not only, getting to talk with them for a little while is always good too. So,
what was the name of the agent we spoke to again? Her name was
Renee Witterstetter.
She came with a great idea. So, I mean, people don't want to have these things all littered in their room, but get an 11 by 17 book and put them in.
Yes, I have 2 of them, and I have to get a 3rd one.
I am going to have to get one too. I have some I didn't know we were presenting stuff today. But I remember reading that comic book, which I loved, by the way.
Yes, Blue Beetle was one of the fun comic books. That's
Blue Devil.
Sorry, Blue Devil. Blue Devil is the closest they've gotten to really doing Spider-Man at DC, because this is a character who wasn't really understanding what he looked like. He still felt he was the normal stunt guy who actually is in this suit, this super-powered suit makes him like 7 feet tall and powerful and flips and whatnot. So he's not really present of what he is. He's just being a hero. So he does these things. He saves the day. And I think he connected with Zatanna, and she has a point where she said, "Oh, you're going to be a great hero." And Paris drew her grabbing him by the horns and giving him a kiss. But very unassuming, really capturing the Spider-Man stuff without the temper that Spider-Man had. Spider-Man very much has a temper, and he didn't have this. He just do the job. Always a fun book. I think Paris Cullins did the first 7 issues and the annual. So,
perfect. Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for listening. And once again, get out there, support the cons. We're definitely going to be in New York Comic-Con, so we got to see you there. Okay, it's going to be off the chain, and we're going to be interviewing creators. We're going to be talking to cosplay. We're going to be taking pictures, and we'll be going to the panels. Spinnerack?
We'll be going to all the panels. Out.